Disclaimer: this review is meant for older audiences only, and this review is my opinion of the game. All credit goes to the people who worked on the game. Don't take anything too seriously, and thanks for watching. Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae Review by WolfDog107. I apologize if I butchered that. Hello everyone, this is WolfDog107 here, and as you know, I do video game reviews, and this time is another one that I'm doing, but with a game called Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae. And I apologize if I butchered the name, but yeah, so this game, pretty simple. It's a 3D arena hack and slash brawler type game, and it's pretty cheap, nothing too special, limited content of course. There's about 6 stages, well 6 bosses technically, but 4 stages. Yeah, 4 stages, 6 bosses, different enemies to fight, although not too many to be honest. And yeah, so yeah, this game's audio can be pretty bad for some of the cutscenes, such as you heard right there in that part of the clip. But yeah, so this game has a story where this girl named Misa is a Blade Templar, and she has to fight off this friend of hers, well, former friend, who happened to have a demon sword that has corrupted her, and so she either has to slay her former friend if she's become too corrupt, or she can save her and spare away the blade or whatever. That's basically it, a story. It's nothing special. And so basically in every level of the game you'll be going around fighting a bunch of dudes, mainly dudes in suits of black, red, and blue, and they're pretty easy to defeat. They don't take that long either. No matter what difficulty you're on, it's easy to beat them. For a majority of these clips I was on normal difficulty, well not normal, easy difficulty. And yeah, so the moves look okay, they're not bad. For the animation quality, pretty good for an indie game, not bad, I'll give it that. And the combat felt responsive, it worked fine, there is no problems with it. Except for the animation canceling and how slow the animations were, and how often you'd be locked into an animation and not be able to get out of it. Especially for attacks like the sweep attacks. When you have that upgrade available, you can get a sweep attack move, and then you can do sweep attacks by holding down R1 and then pressing square alongside that. And then it'll do a little sweep attack with her foot, and yeah, and it looks pretty cool. But the problem with that move is you're going to be locked into that animation unless you roll out of it. You can't use the square button, the same button, to do that same attack, to follow up attacks along after that in order to cancel that animation. You can't really do that. So yeah, some animations you can't really cancel out of that well or as quickly as you'd like to, which I found to be an often occurrence for like in the game for me, and I found it to be a little frustrating. And it's really frustrating when the game doesn't tell you jack shit about the game itself. It doesn't tell you jack shit about the combat. It doesn't tell you jack shit about the controls. The tutorial is there, but it's ass. It doesn't teach you things properly. It just says, this is run, this is jump, this is hit enemies, this is hit enemies more, this is hit enemies harder, and stuff like that. It doesn't really go in depth into the detail of how its combat system works, so it's basically left to the player to figure it all out. And I didn't like that part of this game. Now thankfully, I didn't spend any money on this game, and I'm able to review it right now because I have played it through the PlayStation Now streaming service, which is basically a digital online streaming service that PlayStation has for streaming games like from the PlayStation 3 era, PlayStation 2 era, and PlayStation 4. And so this is a PlayStation 4 title somehow, and it looks like an early 360/PS3 game, to be honest. And yeah, but I streamed the game the other night or whatever, and I'm sure you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, so I played this game through PlayStation Now's streaming service and whatnot. But yeah, it's an okay game. I wouldn't say it's one of the best. For an indie title, it's okay. Not the greatest, because it doesn't really have anything sticking out for it too much besides the combat. And you can unlock additional costumes down the road. One for completing the game, and I don't know how many others, but yeah, now this game I think is not too great. I'm not sure what score I'd give it, probably somewhere around like 4 or 5 or 6 out of 10. Most likely 5 out of 10. And what I have to say about the combat, for when the enemies start flashing red, that's when they're in a bleeding state. Hence why you see me using the one of the buttons or whatever to have the character or whatever sheath her sword. And when she does that, that's called a Zangetsu or whatever it was. I don't remember for sure, but yeah, so that specific move that she does where she sheaths her sword when the enemies are red, that's when they'll take a lot of damage when she sheaths her sword, because they're in a bleeding state. And it only works when they're in a bleeding state. And when they're in a bleeding state and you do the sheath move, that's when you can actually deal lots of damage for one, get a lot of SP, and you can also boost your katana gauge, which is the blue bar at the top of the screen. And then you can also boost your health, which is obviously the green bar. And yeah, that's basically how that stuff works. And there is a counter system, which the game doesn't tell you about unless you go into the upgrade section. And if you die and you're on the loading screen, you can see where it says tips, and it'll tell you a specific tip, whatever. And usually it'll tell you stuff about counters, stuff about blocking. The game doesn't really tell you that enough. It just says, play the tutorial. You're not really told anything useful, you're just told the basics. And here is where the upgrade screen is. You just hit the pause menu, go to upgrade, and then you're in the upgrade screen. And you use SP, which is skill points, to buy all the different upgrades. And yeah, so it's an alright game. I'd say I at least had fun to it. The combo was pretty fun. Nothing too deep, although some of the moves were cool, such as like if you hold down circle and then press R1 and then press R1 again to like add a special effect to the move, then you get a cool effect where you see a bunch of slices or whatever go towards the enemy, flying through the air, as you saw right there. And yeah, it's pretty cool animations they did. Not bad. Not all of them perfect, of course. Most of them were kind of shit, to be honest. But for an indie game, not bad. I wasn't expecting too much. I mean, this is $10 on the PlayStation Store. And it's also on PC, the Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. Do I think it's worth $10? Oh, hell no. Definitely not $10. I don't think it's worth $10. If you really wanted to, I can see why. But I'd say it's worth at least $5, or it could just go free to play. I think it would be best if they made this game free to play. Then I'd have a lot more to say about it. But since it's $10, I'm not gonna say much, because $10 for this kind of game, they could have done a lot better. Now, for the combat, I felt it was the most intriguing thing about the game. Everything else meant jack shit to me. And when it came to fighting specific enemies, there was a challenge. Thankfully, there is a challenge, like kind of like Dark Souls, to where you've been fighting a boss forever and ever and ever, and you just can't beat it. That kind of difficulty, mainly with the bosses. Regular enemies you can handle easily. There are even like a few tricks in here and there that you can figure out to defeat them more quickly. And then there's some costumes that you can get in the game, as I've mentioned, and I only have 2 of them. The base costume that you already get, and then the costume that you get in the game, or after beating the story for the first time or whatever. Those 2 costumes I have, and I hadn't really noticed a difference with the costumes in terms of gameplay or whatever. They don't really do much, besides when she's wearing her school uniform, obviously you're gonna get the occasional panty shot here and there. Nothing too crazy. And they don't really go overboard with panty shots, don't worry. If you're someone that doesn't like seeing panty shots, well, that's up to you if you're gonna play the game or not, but it doesn't really factor into anything at all. It just happens occasionally. There's nothing to worry about there. But yeah, I thought the combos in the game were pretty interesting, things that you could pull off, and like there were like specific moments like where I'd find out a specific move and I'd be like, oh cool, and I try it out and I'd be like, wow, that was actually really cool. And then there was stuff like the counters and the parries. The parries, you're better off not even trying with those, because you can't even pull them off at all. Only like a few times, but I've tried it. It's like, why? The parry system just felt broken. Every time you try to press circle or whatever, right before an enemy attack hits, you still get hit. And yeah, the parry system just felt broken at times. Most of the time. In fact, 99% of the time it felt broken. Only a couple times I was able to pull off a parry in this game. That's how bad it is. However, the guard and counter attack system works okay. But 80% of the time it's broken. But when you do counters and guards, it usually does work. But parries are broken as fuck. And it makes it really difficult to enjoy the experience, I'd say, for the combat, because the parry system should work properly, but in this game it doesn't. And I feel like the developer could have worked on it a lot more. And I really didn't appreciate the hassle of having to learn such a simple thing to do in a game like this, just having to parry when it doesn't even work in the first place, and I'm not even gonna be able to get the trophy at this point. And yes, this game does have a platinum trophy, if you were wondering. It does. I don't know how, but it does. It has 34 trophies in total, aka achievements, and would I say it's worth it? If you want something quick or whatever, or just something simple, I guess. I don't know. I can't really recommend it. But I'd say yeah. Now, the combat in general, I don't think was a great experience that much, but it was the best part of the game, most definitely. Now, fighting regular enemies. The enemies in general were pretty cool looking. They had interesting designs, but they didn't have too much detail on them. That's where I found the that's where I found the enemies lacking in terms of design. They don't have too much detail, besides the suit guys and some other dudes, like the mechs, for example. And then there's also enemy variety, which is a problem with this game. It's very lacking when it comes to enemy variety. There's the 3 suit guys, red, black, and blue. And then there's the mechs. There is buff dudes that are black, and they have like giant black wooden swords or whatever, or stone swords, I think. And then they can charge at you while guarding themselves, while guarding their body at the same time with their sword. And they'll dash towards you and beat you up that way or whatever. And yeah, the enemy variety kind of sucks. There's like not that many enemy types, to be honest. If any, I feel like there's at most 3 enemy types, to be honest. And they each have their own variations besides the, actually no, there's 4 enemy types. And you'll see what they look like later on in the footage. But yeah, I felt the enemy variety was very lacking and could have used more detail for their designs. And yeah. So, moving on to the next. The soundtrack, just one track. Just one track. It's a 2-minute loop. And it repeats over and over and over. Never changes to something else. And I felt they could have done a lot better with the soundtrack. Especially for such a small game like this. They could have had at least 3 tracks that I would have said, okay, it gets repetitive, but at least there's 3 different tracks. But no, here in this game there's only 1 music track, and it gets on my nerves because I had to listen to it the whole time. It's not even good rock music either. It's like, come on, if you're gonna make a game like this, at least make the music quality. At least make it quality rock music. But they didn't even do that. And plus you don't really pay attention to the music either. Even though you can hear it, it's kind of shit. But you don't really pay attention to it because you're too busy fighting and you don't really feel like there's any music there, even though it is. That's my problem with the music in this game. In fact, the only soundtrack, the only track in the game. So yeah, that's the game's soundtrack. Now as far as the story, it's shit. Doesn't really need any mentioning besides just being there and for the reviewer to talk about it. Yeah, as I've already said, it's just boring. Just this one girl named Misa has to go after Suzuka, her former friend, to stop a demon sword, but then Suzuka becomes too corrupt, and she becomes too corrupt, then Misa will have to slay Suzuka and kill her, because she's become too corrupt because of the demon sword. That's it. That's the story. And there's 4 stages, and 6 bosses. And I'd say the boss fights, I think they were pretty good. I actually enjoyed fighting them. It's just that on higher difficulties, normal and hard, they can be a lot more difficult than easy. On easy difficulty, you can beat them no problems whatsoever. But on normal and hard, they can get pretty crazy, and you'll be left trying again and again and again, trying to maximize your katana gauge and your health bar. Now, before I get back to the boss fights, I will say that the health bar system works just fine, the katana system as well. And how you build up the blue bar, which is the katana system, you build it up by doing regular square attacks, which are basically melee attacks that don't require your sword, basically punching and kicking. And when you don't do those attacks, you build up your katana gauge. And to decrease your katana gauge, you use your katana by pressing the triangle button. And so These facial animations cutscenes are horrible. But yeah, so the katana gauge is an interesting system and has some interesting mechanics going for it. Nothing too special though, it's pretty simple but interesting. And I'd say the combat felt responsive, but some of the bosses, some of their movesets just felt a little repetitive for me, personally. But I still enjoyed fighting them because they at least had some good movesets. But this one, for example, Suzuka's boss fight is repeated. Only once it's repeated. This is the first time you fight her. And then in the last stage is just 2 boss fights, which is her and then something else. And then you can get the bosses into bleeding states, as you've seen before, but they don't last very long, so you want to make sure you get a combo in and then perform the sword sheath, and then you'll be able to do damage and get some health from it too if you've taken a lot of damage. And the katana system, you can build it up all the way to get like white diamonds on its symbol or whatever, so you can hold down R1 while pressing, well, hold down the circle button and then press R1 and then perform some cool moves like that. And the more you upgrade the circle move and whatnot, the more stuff you can do with it, and it looks pretty cool too. And yeah, I feel like this game is pretty interesting for its combat, and the katana gauge was pretty interesting. Everything did feel responsive, but it just felt generic. That's my main problem with this game. It just feels generic as fuck. And yeah, pretty much the bosses are pretty fun to fight, and they do feel a little repetitive, but not too much. Most of them are different, and I say most of them because Suzuka is the only boss that's, well, not the only boss that's repeated. The first boss in the game is also repeated, and you'll see where. And yeah. And basically you're seeing me run through all these levels, and each level that you see me run through, this is basically what the game is. That's its length, basically. That's how long the game is, and it's not over yet. And yeah, so I don't know. This game, it's pretty weak. And the upgrade system works just fine. It's just that the game doesn't outright tell you about the upgrade system. You either learn about it through the tips when you die or at the loading screen or whatever, or you go to the pause menu and find out yourself. And these were the giant stone sword guys or whatever that I was talking about earlier. I like their design, just it's lacking in detail. However, their sword looks pretty cool. And then there's that brown guy, the brown knight or whatever they saw right there, right before he died or whatever. Those designs are pretty cool, and yeah. But most of the time you'll be fighting the suit guys and mechas. But yeah, I'd say this game is pretty shit. It's not that great. I wouldn't recommend it that much. And most of the time, you're just gonna be fighting through the same kind of enemy over and over. But yeah, I mean, there are some pretty cool enemies, and the boss designs in general I really did like, such as the second boss and the first boss. Those boss designs are pretty cool. I enjoyed them a lot. Such as pulling off moves, I think that part in the game was pretty cool. And it was a little satisfying, some of the moves, but not all of them. But some of them looked pretty cool, while others, they didn't really feel too impactful. And I'd say the combat in this game is pretty much the only thing to look forward to in this game. Nothing else really matters too much besides the boss fights, of course. And the boss fights in this game, they feel difficult as fuck, like Dark Souls level kind of Dark Souls level difficult, basically. But that's on normal and hard difficulty. On easy, they're not that difficult. But yeah, the bosses can be pretty difficult, just as much as Dark Souls, and it gets pretty difficult. Especially for the last boss. Well, second to last boss and whatnot, on normal and hard. The last two bosses basically are difficult as fuck, and you're gonna find yourself getting frustrated over and over and over until you either beat the boss finally, or you give up and break your controller. And that's what it felt like for me. That's how difficult the bosses got on normal and hard difficulty. But the game's pretty short. You earn trophies pretty quickly once you figure things out, just simple button presses, and when you actually learn the things that the game doesn't even tell you about, not even in the tutorial, you then get the hang of things. You earn trophies pretty quickly, left and right. No problems whatsoever right there. It's just that, for my summary of the game, before I get to the final verdict, I'd say that overall, this is a pretty simple game. Nothing too special. Do I think it's worth the $10 that someone would pay for in order to play it? Not at all. It's not worth $10. Would I'd say it's worth at least $5 or going free to play? Yes, if it would be $5, I would love to pay for it at that point. If it was $5. But if it went free to play, I would download it right away. But this is a $10 game that I didn't have to pay for because I was using the PlayStation Now streaming service on PlayStation Network, which allowed me to play PlayStation 4 games, PlayStation 3 games, and PlayStation 2 games through a monthly streaming service that PlayStation has, which is what PlayStation Now is. Basically Xbox Game Pass but PlayStation. And it kinda sucks because they don't really have good games. Plus some of the games they have on that service are free to play, which doesn't make sense on why they would add those if they're free to play. But okay, PlayStation does what PlayStation does. But yeah, the graphics in this game, nothing special at all. They're just basic. Looks like 360 game. Or 360 or PlayStation 3 game, or whatever. And yeah. The textures don't look that great, to be honest. I can't believe this is a PlayStation 4 game. I mean, I can believe it's a PC game, because PC has anything on there these days, but for a PlayStation 4 game, or Xbox One game, or whatever, it should have better graphics than this. I was expecting a little bit more, at least, but this is an indie game. I'm not gonna bash it too much, but they could have done better. Now, sometimes the music can change. I forgot to mention that. In fact, I didn't mention anything about the music correctly. As far as how many tracks there are different tracks. It's just that I didn't remember that, because this game mostly has the one track that you heard most of the time. But for this boss fight, there is a different music track. Just this one track. But, yeah, none of the tracks are good. They're both pretty bad. I'd say around the same loop as well. And, yeah. So overall, before we get to my final verdict, this game is pretty okay, decent. I'd say the graphics kinda suck, the music sucks ass, and it's repetitive and lame. The game has very limited content. However, you do get costumes, so that's a bonus. You get costumes to unlock, which is pretty cool. was a good panty shots, okay, it's pretty cool, nothing too crazy, but okay. And then the animations look great for an indie title such as this. A name that I still have trouble pronouncing, even though I know what I'm saying when I pronounce it. That's okay. Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae. I don't know if it's Hikae or Hikae. Everyone just says it differently or whatever. But that's how it is. Now, the combat felt pretty damn cool. It felt responsive. The mechanics were pretty interesting, yet they were simple. But there were some issues, such as the counter system, the blocking system, and the parry system. That all three of those mechanics and systems, whatever, felt broken at times, and I felt like I was just getting more frustrated by using those mechanics over and over again, because they wouldn't work at all, they wouldn't work on time, and whenever I'd actually use them correctly, it still wouldn't work. Only occasionally would the parry system work, yet 20% of the time the counter system would work, while 50-50 the block system would work. And the game doesn't really tell you some of these things. It doesn't tell you about the combos, it doesn't tell you about the parry system, guard system, or counter system either. And the game could have had a better tutorial, it could have been longer, and it could have featured a lot more information for the player to use to their advantage. Such as some of the jump attacks, where you jump into the air and then you can do like a downward kick or whatever, or you could do air slashes or whatever. And the game doesn't really tell you that. You actually have to learn it yourself by purchasing the move in the upgrade section. And then there's also something stupid. For the upgrade system, you can get all of the upgrades completed. When you do that, you still don't get the trophy until you get the costume upgrade, which apparently is counted as an upgrade for that trophy. So basically you can't get the upgrade for all, well, basically you can't upgrade all your upgrades all the way until you actually unlock that last costume in the upgrade system. And yeah, I felt that was pretty stupid, that somehow I don't unlock the trophy when I completed the upgrades for all upgrades, and I don't have the amount of SP I need to unlock that costume at the end of the upgrade section, and I need to have that costume in order to get that trophy. So I feel that was pretty stupid. And now I'd say the story, nothing special at all. Don't go in here expecting some crazy indie game story type shit. It's not that. I'd say this game I had my eye on. Occasionally I'd see it in the PlayStation Store and whatnot. I'd be like, I've seen this game so many times, I wonder if it's good. And well, now we know that it's at least decent. And this is basically the end of the game. And was it worth it? No. It was not. It was not worth it. Not that much, anyway. However, I did enjoy the fact that there are multiple costumes to unlock. You can clear the game and go back to this, like go ahead and click on the restart button here at this screen only. Right when you beat the final boss and get to that screen, click on the restart button, choose whatever difficulty, and you'll carry over your progress. Even your upgrades that you already got. and your SP. But the one problem with that is you can only carry over your upgrades and stuff if you do it from that same restart screen after completing the final boss. You can't do it from the main menu. If you do it from the main menu, you will screw yourself over and you won't keep any of your progress at all. What you'll do instead is you'll basically do another playthrough. Nothing unlocked yet at all, and you'll have to do it all over again. Unless you choose to do a save file right before, like right when you do the restart from the end game screen, then you can keep your progress and whatnot, start up a save file, and then go back to the main menu and go back to that save file whenever. You'll still have the upgrades. So yeah, the New Game Plus system felt broken. It didn't really like say anything clearly at all. It just said want to restart, and I would say okay. And so I would restart, I carry over my progress, but the first time I saw that screen, I decided to go to the title menu, basically the main menu, whatever. And when I did that, I clicked on New Game again, because I didn't really do a save file, I didn't really want to. And yeah. So I clicked on New Game, and then I found out that my progress didn't carry over. So that meant I had to click on the restart button at the end game screen from completing the final boss. And that would let me carry over my progress. But if you just do it from the main menu, you're not going to be able to carry over progress at all. So yeah, this game is kind of shit for doing that. And yeah. So overall, my final verdict for this game, Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae, is a 5 out of 10. Hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, peace out, Muff Dog out, 5 out of 10.